welcome to another episode of Rebel City Podcast. This week's guest, we've got Darren McGarvie, or Loki as you're more popularly known by, for a second episode. So how's it going,
Nice to
mate?
have you back, man.
Good, nice to see you.
Absolutely.
I'm good, thank you.
Hopefully this isn't a cynical move, because you're the most watched episode that we've had.
Is it? Oh, you've been captured by the algorithm, falling into the same trap as the mainstream media, writing about the royal family.
Not sure.
But we're not just getting you in because we're trying to boost numbers of it, and I think we made a list in the new year. We're trying to change the podcast up, but one of the sort of 4 or 5 names that was on the list was to get you in for a second episode, because we genuinely want to have you in and talk about things.
Oh no, that's fine. I've been off for a few months anyway, and I'm kind of just stepping back in to get back into the swing of things. So it's good for me to stretch my legs a wee bit and have a relatively straightforward conversation.
You would hope anyway.
Aye.
So 2020 was supposed to be like the astrologists and the spiritualists say that symmetry is a sign of like peace and sort of longevity, and you've seen a lot of people, they'll post their 11/11 when they see it in their phone, or their 22/22. And 2020 was supposed to be the year where we left all the bullshit behind us, like the last decade, and that we moved into a more progressive and accepting decade of, who knows what we were expecting. Maybe the 90s, maybe because we dressed like we're in the 90s, maybe we were hoping that we're going to get the 90s. But December 2019, we've seen Boris Johnson get voted in as Prime Minister, and it looks like the Democrats in America are eating themselves alive, and that Trump might potentially get another 4 years in office. What the fuck do you think is going on? Like, what are we doing?
Wow, it's such a big question. Well, first of all, I think that when you're talking about questions of astrology and all of that, and these other dimensions that some people claim exist and all that, I think there is a way, if you work really hard at it, to find yourself in a mindset where you can still function and still see the good in the world, while a lot of this other shit is playing out, and that, I think that is important.
I think that's going to be vital for a lot of folk these days, is actually, acknowledging that, fair enough, there is a level of negativity out there, but you can still, manage yourself through it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously the situation we're in, the wheels are in motion. So going right back to the financial crash, really, we're still experiencing we're now experiencing the cultural effects of the economic effects that came after the crash. So ultimately, everyone's forgotten that the financial crash is kind of ground zero of where we're at.
Yeah.
And now the topic became about immigration, and then it became about constitutional issues, and then it became a kind of us versus them, whatever side of that particular fence you might be on. Actually, as much as I would love for the left in the United States, and by the way, when I say the left, I'm being careful now to make sure I define what I mean when I'm saying it.
Yeah.
When I talk about the left, I'm talking about socialism. I'm talking about people who want to change the capitalist system.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking about
Biden or Clinton.
No, I'm not talking about Chuka Muna. I'm not talking about, I'm not saying that those positions are invalid, but that's not the left.
No.
Right? That's liberals, and that's fine. So as much as I would like the left to be in power, at the same time the left isn't ready to be in power.
No.
And actually, the longer the left isn't in power, then the more opportunity it has actually to get shit together. So as things play out, and this is me just looking at it pragmatically, obviously there's a lot of people suffering just now. There's a lot of collateral damage as the events play out. But if you actually are engaged with leftist culture, particularly online with these platforms where ideas are being promulgated more profusely than in the real world, then actually you'll see that the left is starting to kind of get its head around certain things. So great YouTube content, for example, people like Peter Coffin, ContraPoints, really breaking down those cultural questions that the left has struggled to grapple with.
Okay.
And ultimately, the predominant regimenting factor politically now is culture issues, identity issues. That has become equal to, or perhaps even less than, economic issues. And this has been something the left has struggled to get its head around. It's been inhibited, first of all, by the fear around challenging some of the excesses of the kind of so-called identity politics, right? Now, I'm in complete agreement with the objectives of equality for all.
Yeah.
People should be able to express themselves in every way, sexually, identity, religion, all of that. I don't have any issues with any of those things. But even the fact that I have to preface what I'm saying there tells you something about the kind of environment that we've been operating in, where any kind of critique of certain strategies or online activism can sometimes be conflated with a denial that there's a problem with racism, or there's a problem with gender equality.
Yes.
When I would never ever make that case. What I'm noticing now is that as leftists who are about class inequality and that analysis have come now to understand that actually the identity politics dynamic that's often seen as being on the left, a lot of that stuff is having its needs met by liberals in the centre ground, having their needs met by multinational corporations. I mean, how many people were thrilled when Black Panther came out and it was the biggest film ever, and this was hailed as like a big victory for progressive politics, right? You're kind of on one hand, you're going like, okay, that's great. Okay, this is a bit strange. So that's the yardstick that we're measuring success in terms of identity. Now, I'm not dissing anybody on that, but I'm just saying I think that the left has come to recognise that you can't really incorporate identity politics into a left-wing analysis that's basically an economic analysis. And so now I think as time has passed, people, thought leaders, community leaders, activists, whether online or in real life, have begun to formulate a kind of magnanimous response around the issue of identity to say, we're not kind of cutting this adrift. We're not saying we're not on board with this stuff, but our focus is class politics. Our focus is that sort of stuff. That's what we're fighting for. That's what we've always been fighting for. And this has massive implications for women, for people of colour, for the LGBTQ community. Because ultimately, if you're poor and your experience in society is compounded by one of those other aspects, whether you be female or a person of colour or a disabled person, then that class analysis actually speaks to all of these experiences.
I think that's one of the things that we've forgot about ourselves, and I've said it in previous episodes as well, where we stopped talking about our class. And we started talking about the individual isms, the identities that we feel, best define us, whether it be any number of these things. But what I would like to see, Mary, and I think particularly in Scotland, there was a lot of guys post-election that were very socialist leaning, who are now starting to talk about, self-determination and all these other things. But if we can start talking about class and actually talking to the issues that affect us within that class structure, the isms and the identities that we all are catered to. You know what I mean? I think all our focuses have been too narrow. We've got so into, who we are as individuals that we forgot that if we take care of, everybody of the same sort of political class as us, that everybody benefits fair.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit, I was operating within what I thought was a discussion around issues of identity, completely unaware of the bigger culture war that had been going on for years prior to my understanding. So the thing that caught my attention at first was I was doing shows and there was pushback from the crowd that I had never experienced before. So I remember one instance where I was performing at a Commonweal event after the election.
Right.
And, I was trying to say, everybody's just doing their best. I was kind of trying to talk in the language of reconciliation in relation to no voters and things like that. I didn't like this idea of Scotland becoming this kind of politically segregated society.
Definitely.
Or at least an additional factor of segregation among the many that already existed.
Definitely.
And then I sort of I don't know, it was a wee sucker punch I did to the audience. Well, everybody's doing their best. And then just almost kind of jokingly or provocatively, I was like, including Tories. And then, straight away everybody's back is up, right? So then people are kind of not necessarily on the attack, but there's this new scepticism. So as I continue with my show, I think I made a joke about Madonna. I think that week Madonna had smack the lips on Drake on stage or something like that, and I made the joke about, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You know, like Madonna forcing herself on Drake like that. Then again, everything she does is forced, right? So it was a kind of, it was a very pedestrian observation about consent when the roles are reversed.
Yeah.
It was provocative. It was probably not the best idea at the time. But I just remember then women at the front shouting at me and me handing the microphone down and them speaking in this language that I hadn't heard before, which was the language of privilege, the language, all these theories that really have kind of been mainstreamed by the left recently.
Yeah.
But that was my first interaction with it. So I'm getting called a misogynist and all of that. No doubt I've behaved misogynistically many times in the past and harbour misogynistic attitudes because I've grown up in a culture that's male dominated and male entitlement. Like, so I would never deny that. But can my entire life be defined by the word misogyny? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? We're talking about specific behaviour. But at the time I hadn't even contemplated this. So you just go on Google and you start Googling the things that people are shouting at you.
Yeah.
Trigger warning, safe space, misogynist. And what happens? Oh, hello, Mr. Peterson. Oh, hello, you know, Ben Shapiro. So you've got an online algorithm that's already calibrated to prioritise all of this kind of all of this content that you're getting told is alt-right.
Yeah.
Right? And so for a while you kind of descend that rabbit hole because you feel a bit rejected and you're starting to get a kind of sense of, oh, these are other people who are going through this experience I'm going through, but it's dead confusing.
I
And
almost share your victimhood or
Well,
what you've maybe perceived to be a level of victimhood by
exactly.
being called out like that.
Exactly. So then you're kind of in that pipeline for a wee while. But really what happened when I emerged out of that was, and it was more a kind of exploratory thing. I was kind of struck by what at first seemed like this kind of tolerance of a diversity of viewpoints. I liked the intellectual slants that people were taking on things that were happening in the left that I wasn't hearing on the left.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of drawn into it just because of the vicarious pleasure of seeing other people talking about things that aren't allowed to be discussed.
Yeah.
So it was a thrill at first. But I had no idea that actually that this culture war had been raging for ages. So what I was experiencing was people on the left or people identity politics or whatever basically trying to warn me, this pipeline's out there, it's trying to pump you towards this and that, you need to be careful. They weren't being as diplomatic as that, obviously.
It wasn't much of a warning, as more like a screaming accusation.
So it was just, it ended up for me, it was like I spent a while kind of really deeply considering, I don't know if I like the culture on the left anymore. But then I started to realise what I was thinking was the left wasn't the left. It was this other thing that naturally, by nature of its kind of progressive objectives, was attached to the left. But it wasn't the left. It was a kind of mixture of liberalism and identity politics. And it didn't necessarily need to be absorbed by the left. It's its own thing. But because people throw the term the left around so much, I think I kind of got confused by it as well.
Do you think that has led to sort of common sense, or no, even it might, somebody could argue it's common sense or no, but something like free medical care in America, like Medicare or whatever they want to call it, or the NHS in the UK. So in the UK, we expect free medical care, but in America, it seems like a radical policy. And do you think it's because this idea that the centre has now became the left to them, and that this idea is slightly centre left, and it's almost like, oh, how come that's socialism? And you're like, well, isn't it really socialism? Now we're getting the lines between taking care of people, making sure that people are healthy and fit, is now a radical communist policy that needs to be shot down because communism leads to nihilism. And look at Russia, look at China, and then you're kind of like, well, we're moving past what that was. We want to progress past Russia and China and dictatorships and have a more humanistic economy and humanistic sort of policy or politics that isn't, like Mao or Stalin.
Yeah. It will always be counterintuitive to a lot of Americans because they've got more of a pathological skepticism of government just because of the political history.
Yeah.
And the way the Constitution is written, encoded in the Constitution is this hyper awareness of tyranny possibly lurking around every corner. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about America, how it grew up out of, British colonialism. However, I think actually where that would normally be quite a sensible and admirable attitude to take, I think the big corporations, obviously, that have an interest in the status quo where healthcare is concerned over there, they stoke the flames of that and make it a non-rational scepticism of what should just be a basic public service. For me, when we talk about the left as well, in America, liberal means a different thing again.
Yeah.
So it can become more confusing just as an onlooker when people are talking about liberals and Republicans, and these words have different meanings in the UK. For me, Bernie Sanders is left, and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, they are liberals.
Yeah.
And most of the media are liberal establishment,
Absolutely.
corporate liberal establishment.
I would say that Hillary Clinton's probably more akin to somebody like David Cameron in this country than she is Jeremy Corbyn, but she represents, or she is part of the left in America.
Definitely.
Where I think if it would come here, and I think that this is a big issue, especially amongst younger generations of people, because they are seeing social media and Twitter as, they don't see the lines between America and UK and different cultures and politics. They just see this whole thing that's online.
The
so
noise.
when they're talking about, I had a conversation with somebody, a good friend of mine's stepson who's 17, and he was talking about I don't see racism. I don't experience it. So where is it? And everything that he referred to was American. He was talking about these things that are happening in America, when people talk about white privilege and when people talk about rampant racism. And he's like, well, I don't see it, so it doesn't exist. I was like, well, look, you live in Scotland in 2020, and it's quite a progressive society that they live in, and you don't see it, but it does exist. And the white privilege that they're talking about amongst sort of the frat college boys in America, it doesn't exist here for you. You're a working class guy, Irish Catholic descendant, single mum for the majority of your life. It doesn't exist for you, but you need to realise that it does exist for some people.
Aye.
And it's not just for you to then, like you're saying, go down the rabbit hole with Jordan Peterson's and Ben Shapiro, who prey on this attitude of well, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist, and then tell you that you're being lied to,
people
that it actually
arrive,
doesn't exist.
People arrive. I'm not saying that there isn't something to be gained from engaging with thinkers and writers and figures who have a different value system.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things Jordan Peterson says that make complete sense to me.
12 Rules of Life is a good book for somebody who is bedbound with depression.
Aye.
It gives you a lot of good hints and tips. And
I mean, I've not read it, but I've watched enough of his lectures, and I've seen enough debates about him, and I've seen him engaging with enough people to kind of get a measure of the guy.
Yeah.
And while obviously I think the fact that he became such a phenomenon off the back of his stance on trans issues, ultimately, really you can see that that's the thing he least wants to talk about. It's just that he became a lightning rod for those things.
Ironically, we were the same after a couple of episodes of Trans Chat. It was like, well, we'll leave that today. And we'll Took us 14 minutes.
But I mean, even then, that's a perfect example of, the vast majority of people aren't going to experience transphobia. They're not going to experience bodily dysphoria. They're not going to experience what it's like to feel as sure that you are one sex, but your body's different. And most of us don't experience that. So there's an element of privilege involved in that. I think where the issue of white privilege generally. Obviously, is it a scientific fact? No, it's not a scientific fact. And as a homeless white man more privileged than a black female university professor? No, that's absurd. And I spoke to Akala at length about this over the course of 4 events, and was really heartened to see, perhaps actually by virtue of the fact that he is a mixed race man, then he's afforded a little more space to push back against the idea of white privilege because he's not white. So there's another paradox. And so actually a lot of the thoughts that he was sharing were similar to my own, articulated very well, backed up by facts. And he was basically just saying, of course there's a privilege in being white. That's very natural. But sometimes the way that this theory is applied, particularly by Caucasian upper middle class activists, can just be a bit kind of cack-handed. And so no one likes to be accused of being privileged. It just doesn't matter. It's because no one likes that you're the person with the silver spoon. Everybody likes to think that they worked hard and that they're merit and they're worthy in some way. So I think now maybe identity politics has managed to refine the message a little bit. But when a lot of this stuff was being mainstreamed very quickly via social media, it didn't come with a public relations
disclaimer.
It wasn't saying, and here are the also the areas where you might have some questions, and we're ready to deal with those questions. It was just, if you have a fucking question, you're fucking denying that this is going on, and you're part of the problem. And I think even countless people on the left now have came out, whether in writing, whether they've said it publicly, whether it's on social media, beginning to kind of articulate the response, which is, do what you're doing. This is what we're doing. If there's any overlap potential here, that'd be great. But I think the left is going to become more protective of the class analysis that's required, because ultimately I think that has a lot more utility in terms of uniting people, as well as actually, cutting to the very core of what a lot of the inequalities are actually about.
Absolutely. I think that, I can't even remember who I heard say it, and it wasn't in reference, but I used it in this conversation with this guy. I was saying that, working class guys in Glasgow schemes in the East End when I was growing up have got more in common with black guys that live in Harlem, with people that live in Compton, than what they do with people that live in Westminster, or people that... so that's why we end up with this, or we seem to have ended up with this divided and very much misogynistic view of men are under attack. It's our culture's under attack, and I think that people throwing petrol on that fire by shouting out somebody's privilege is just going to make it even worse.
The issue is when people view men's issues and women's issues as a zero-sum game. So you'll get Women's Aid tweeting something out about shortage of funding. A rape crisis tweeting out something about shortage of funding, and a couple of tweets down you'll get a kind of men's rights equivalent saying, well, we've been running since 2012 and how come we don't get it? And there's this perception that women's issues have just been automatically funded since day one, and that actually all of those organisations aren't a part of a concerted political social movement which has been pushing women's issues into the political sphere for 100 years. And so, Rape Crisis, Women's Aid, all of these organisations that particularly specialise in matters affecting women, it's a political process they've been on where they've had to stay the course, they've had to fight through the various layers of stubborn public misguided perceptions about issues around gender, many of which we've probably been guilty of expressing at different points as men. And you can't say, we started the Scottish Family Party in 2012, and why are we not getting funded by government? The government doesn't hand out funding willy-nilly. You need to get in the game and you need to fight for it, and that's how it works. And so I think now we're beginning to see again. I mean, I just seen Owen Jones publish an article in The Guardian last week which was about men who suffer sexual abuse and rape. And
so that was a pretty big story in recent weeks with the conviction of the fella, was it 17 men he'd raped or something like that?
Like just it seems like prolific seems like the wrong word to use. Just a serial fucking rapist. Arsehole, right? But the thing about it is that when the issue is raised of its own merit and isn't raised as a response to somebody raising a women's issue, culture doesn't have a problem with men talking about the issues that they face, whether it's mental health crisis, whether it's men being fucked over in family courts, whether it's all of these issues. It's just that when it's kind of, aye, but what about men?
Yeah.
What
about they?
It seems kind of petulant, you know. And
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of petulance, and I think as we talk about all the various sort of factions of the sort of wider notions of the left, both here and elsewhere, like, you know, I think what we need is to try and find ways to bring ourselves together a bit better. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of absolutism within all the individual wee factions, and I think, you know, these types of reactions and, you know, negative connotations that we are now all starting to associate with discussing anything really in the public domain should, for me, be all that we need to motivate us to actually try and find ways around these things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I think in terms of that particular story, I was taken aback by the fact that I was pure. Obviously, throughout the course of human history, gay men have been raped probably as much, well, maybe not as much, I don't know, but it happens, it will have happened everywhere through all time.
And raped by men. So again, it comes back to men's proclivity to sexual violence.
I'm nearly
Absolutely.
40 years old and I've never seen a story. I've never consciously been thinking to, and I thought to myself, I think that's the first time I've ever read a story about a guy being raped. And I found that quite odd. Like that's no part of any of the conversations we have about, you know, all these various
This
issues.
is how they infiltrate and how they actually like radicalise, and put that in air quotes because I don't know how much you would say it as being radical, but that's how they get young guys to see the hypocrisy in the reporting and the media. Is that they point out these things and they go, well, ask yourself why no, it's because they're against you. It's like almost like weaponised, like gay men or men, they get sexually assaulted. There are plenty of instances where people, and especially in social media, will probably come out and go like, men can't be sexually assaulted, and it's like, well, maybe in your mind, but I think that's a really good point of what you just said there is who's the perpetrator? It's other men. Like we still have this problem with sexual violence amongst men, and we need to look at that, and it's not about blaming men or like pointing the finger, but it's just an actual fact that you know what I mean.
Does that mean women? You don't get female paedophiles and you don't get female abusers of other women, or even men, or even children? Of course not. But trying to compare the two is like trying to compare the number of people who die from champagne corks per year and the number of people who die in traffic accidents.
Absolutely.
You know, you wouldn't be like, look at all the people who died in traffic accidents. Yeah, but what about the people who died from when they opened a bottle of champagne? You know, I want more money for that. It's just like,
or even worse, it's well, you look at the amount of people that die for opening a bottle of champagne. We're not going to ban that, so we may as well just not even bother talking about this other issue as a way to sort of try and go, well, fuck your point, it's pointless because, but it's just trying to marginalise things.
And how do we, one of the things I'm kind of trying to break down in my writing in my new book is, as well as these political issues, cultural issues, whatever, how do we arrive in a place where these impulses begin to drive how we conduct ourselves in conversations? How many people, I mean, even earlier when I was talking about kind of arriving in that sort of what in identity politics would be called the kind of alt-right pipeline, right? I arrived there at a feeling of irritation that someone had challenged me, right? I didn't take a minute to think about the validity of the challenge. I didn't take a minute to think about what ignorance am I bringing to bear in that dynamic that I feel offended that someone has challenged me, or even just consider what aspects of being challenged am I going to accept and which ones am I going to push back against. There was none of that. It was, I've been challenged, I'm going online to figure out what this means, and then immediately being drawn to people who seem to have a experience similar to mine. Now, how much of how we conduct ourselves in matters of politics and culture are we driven by those impulses totally beyond our own awareness? Totally beyond our awareness. And the truth is, often when we feel annoyed, upset, irritated, angry, we can feel most justified, but also we're actually our most vulnerable to becoming prey to ideas that are way more reactionary than maybe what our natural political positions are. And I say this for people all across the spectrum. You know, the the public discourse online is curdled, right? The idea of trying to sort out complex problems by talking about them on Twitter is absurd and by its very nature. But again, even though we all know this, we're all on there trying to do it.
Yeah.
So there has to be, and this is the kind of argument I make in the book, is rather than spending a lot of time being hypercritical of the things we think are holding our side back, we just need to make our own values visible. So we need to become examples of what sort of politics we want to see.
Yeah,
and that means sometimes, like, developing a conscious awareness of what these impulses that can drive the mean-spiritedness are. And sometimes learning to resist them. Now, will you be able to do it all the time? Absolutely not. You're a human being.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to get angry and let off steam. And sometimes you need to get angry because that's the only kind of energy that's going to get something done.
Yeah.
But for me, I recognise that a lot of the time it's in the editing process of writing when basically I'm trying to scale it. I'm trying to take the vitriol out of it. When I'm moved into a place of writing, it's from a place of anger, and then I have to put it through the sieve a few times because I'm also trying to be persuasive, and I'm also trying to be open-minded, and I'm also trying to be charitable to points of view that I disagree with. I'm not trying to present the opposite person as the worst possible caricature of their position. And if I'm trying to do that, I'm not helping. It might feel cathartic. It might get an applause from a bunch of people who are equally mean-spirited as me. But, when it comes down to it, my inclination, particularly when I'm feeling well, is to be a bit more generous of spirit, whoever I'm dealing with. And I think people on the left, particularly in relation to these matters of culture where there's obviously great friction, and also trying to break down in our minds, right, who are we fighting now? Because we're saying that if we're saying Tories are scum, I think maybe we might get a grading system. So there are gradations of scumminess. Right, so we're saying Jacob Rees-Mogg is kind of on the far end of it, right? He's kind of
at least an 8.
He's over there with sort of your Dick Cheney people on the right, okay? Like, just fucking dangerously reactionary, right? But then are we going to say that more kind of moderate conservatives are also scum? So do we need to confront the radical idea that even though we would rather have no Tories in power, and we would rather be in power, and we'd rather no one had any conservative viewpoints, whether social or economic, at the same time, we also have a society where we have to live together, we have to have some degree of cohesion, and actually at some point in a democracy we're going to have to collaborate with people that we don't agree with in order to get something done.
The thing about some of these platforms that we're talking about is that as much as people are out there voicing their opinions and putting their 2 points, it's almost like we're doing a lot of talking but we're not actually communicating effectively, you know what I mean? And I think an openness to engage with and discuss and debate the other side on any manner of, topics is something that we need to see way more.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because we encounter so many folk now that they're just in their trenches, they're dug in, and there is no wiggle room, and you're like, I think we need to find ways to get to these
they're
people.
Interesting.
And
it's like, where are they?
By going, you're a bad person for being in the trench, doesn't it get that person out the trench? You know what I mean?
But even that. So let's break that down. So, where are these people? So these people we talk about are often a character which is a caricature that's in our mind. That is the kind of, that is our brain, our consciousness's best effort to try and put various different pieces of our experience together into something that's coherent. Often what we're talking about when we're saying these people in the trenches is 5 people on Facebook that fucking do our tits in. Right? Because actually, and when you go into the real world, and I do that quite often, so public events, performing, you get loads of different people from loads of different backgrounds, and when people are in a room together, their inclination is to cooperate unless they're drunk. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's almost like what we're saying about people being entrenched is absolutely important to point out. Sometimes what I would question, and I do this with myself as well, is are we referring to that as taking place on a larger scale than it really is? Because what social media does is it creates false equivalence between so many different viewpoints and groups based on what's driving interaction and conversation. And a lot of this stuff doesn't map onto reality very well when you come out of the social media space.
We were talking about that the other week, weren't we?
Yeah, I had a conversation where and I was playing sort of devil's advocate with her as well, which it was fine, and she didn't follow me, which was good. But they were talking about racial violence in America and like police violence, and I was saying to her, right, so absolutely these events happen every day, but they don't happen as often as what you think they do. It's not like everywhere in America black people are under attack for the police. It's like it might happen once, but that one event gets spread around the globe, and then everybody's like, holy shit. And it is shocking, and something absolutely needs to be done about it, but you also need to maintain an element of realism, and that is one person that happened to, and that you don't need to start then screaming at the person next to you because you've seen this video. And there needs to be, you need to be rational about these things. Like we live, like 2020, we live in the best time that there has ever been to be alive. And it almost feels like the worst time that's ever been to be alive. Like we have get more. Yeah, you can take care of literally, like especially here right now. If you're sick, you can go and get it seen. And I think that we need to sort of like take a step back and almost do what you were saying is that think about how people interact in real life. And a good example of that is if you walk down Sauchiehall Street right now, Saturday afternoon, you're probably likely to meet a religious extremist. And the guy that stands there and reads for the Bible and shouts at people walking by. Is there a queue of people there waiting to attack this guy? No. People ignore him because... and it's just like if you were in the pub and some drunk idiot's talking and being racist or being misogynistic in the pub. Do you run up and punch that guy in the face, or do you run up and scream back at him, you're a fucking...
Yeah.
You don't. You ignore him and you don't give him the fresh air. But when somebody from Love Island... then Snapchat's a video of her in a nightclub going, Jeremy Corbyn can fuck off because he's not taking 60% of my money. She doesn't understand tax. Like, what do you do with that person? Well, what happened was that it got retweeted in 2 or 3 days, get caught up with people gaining it the air that it didn't deserve. Just fucking ignore it. Yeah, don't engage with it. It isn't real. Like, that's one person. She doesn't represent that side. And also, she's not scum. She doesn't want to vote for Boris Johnson because she thinks that working class people are going to die on benefits. It is a real...
nobody out there is like pure let's kill more working class people. Like it's
unless maybe the Queen, maybe Prince Philip, maybe the lizard people, maybe. But I think real people, if you were to actually sit down with them and go, "What did you vote?" and be like, "I voted Conservative," and you were to say, "Did you vote for more people on universal income to commit suicide and die of starvation?" Absolutely fucking not for the vast majority of people. But this is what it is.
I mean, just kind of as you walk through the tectonic plate of evidence that something about the way the left has been conducting itself, particularly in the social media age where often we've all been acting without a real awareness of how what we say and do on social media actually translates to other people, then this kind of what you're referring to, this relying almost exclusively on the kind of moral urgency of the perma-crisis, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you scroll through your news feed, you're going to see Business Insider, the London Economic, the Screeching Canary. You're going to see the Independent, which is kind of trying to out-canary the canary. And every day it's just going to be the same story about someone who was waiting on benefits died while getting PIP and their PIP payments. You're going to see the same story about food banks. You're going to see the same story and the same story and the same story.
Yep.
And to the person who hasn't moved out of the trench yet, this just is another layer of evidence that adds to the moral outrage. Now, of course, these things are outrageous.
Yeah,
they absolutely are. But you have to understand that this moral appeal to people to change their mind on a moral basis doesn't wash with everyone because everyone has a slightly different moral worldview.
Absolutely.
So if you look at Labour's campaign, you can see one of the real weaknesses of it was that it relied primarily on this kind of Ken Loach approach. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it was like, ultimately at its core, it was Tories are bad, Tories are shit, fuck Tories, vote Labour. You know what I mean? Here's a picture of somebody at a food bank. Here's a picture of somebody who's struggling.
He's Jeremy Corbyn in a Christmas jumper at a homeless shelter.
Exactly. And other people who are, you know, dealing with other issues, just because they don't change their mind based on that sort of campaigning doesn't mean that they don't care. You know, an economic or social conservative might say something like, this is terrible. You know what I mean? It's terrible that these things are happening. But if you look at the way the economy is being run, how the hell are we supposed to provide public services when we're getting more and more into debt? Right? So the conservative analysis begins and ends with law and order, live within your means. Without these two things, you have nothing. You don't have a society. You don't have laws, rights. You don't have welfare. You don't have these things. And so, like, while you might disagree with the effects of adopting that viewpoint, you have to accept that there is a kind of moral logic to it. And then when you accept that there is a moral logic to it, you can discard all of that other stuff about them just wanting to kill working class people.
Yeah.
Do the effects of political policies result in death and trauma and the kind of post-industrial malaise which all of these problems are associated with?
Yep.
Absolutely they do. But the Conservative would be able to cite you 10 examples of Conservative policies that have lifted working class people out of poverty. I mean, the middle class exploded under Margaret Thatcher. It just can't be denied. Where do you think all of these upwardly socially mobile Conservatives all come from? Do you know what I mean? They didn't just get grown in fucking test tubes. Do you know what I mean? They became middle class. They had middle class kids, and they're all voting Tory. And so it's just, I can't get on board with dismissing conservatism as a value system. It's important to make sure that we don't throw every tradition out. It's important to recognise that we need to live within our means. That sometimes the best contribution we can make to our community is to get our own house in order. Like, these are just basic virtues. I don't have problems with conservative virtues. I have problems when publicly schooled millionaire heirs and heiresses who hitch themselves to conservatism embark on political adventures that affect people who are living lives that they have no concept of. Now that is something completely different from a working class person voting Tory because of the immigration issue. Like, it just is different.
Absolutely.
Cameron, Johnson, Theresa May, to a lesser extent, although I'd say argue that she's done more damage than all of them.
But Osborne's a big one as well, George Osborne.
Aye, exactly. So I make a distinction between those people in politics and your average conservative punter who's either like living in a scheme buying a Daily Mail or who's living in a suburb, and there is a difference, I think.
Absolutely, and I think that this was displayed, and I think it's something that people have started to sort of, well, especially for me, I was happy to see, in no way am I an endorser of the reigning government in any way, shape or form, but their political leaders coming out and saying, when we say we are anti-American, we mean your political class and the people that run your military and your economics. We don't mean you. We've got nothing against you. And I think that that's something that we, and I'm starting to sort of come round to and have been for like maybe a year now, is that I'm against Boris Johnson, but I'm not against a deluded person in Shettleston that voted for a Tory councillor. He's not a scumbag, and telling him that he is a scumbag isn't going to change his mind. In fact, he's going to fucking double down. And this is, I think that we need to, like Matt was saying earlier on, we need to engage more in, why did you do that? You know what I mean? Like, curiosity, for fuck's sake.
He might be feeling forced into voting Conservative because he doesn't want independence. He might be, there's all sorts of reasons why. So maybe he just believes in the UK, right? And that's just where that person is. in Scotland, sometimes the choices that we're confronted with bear little relation to what we would like to actually see happen in our country in terms of policy, and have everything to do with looking 2, 3, 4 years down the line at what's going on in Westminster and what our view is on independence, and trying to vote pragmatically within all of those constraints. So there is always, and also what we need to remember as well is just the kind of the emotional illiteracy of, on one hand, recognising that you're not going to get elected without persuading people to your point of view or building a broad coalition of the electorate behind your platform, and at the same time constantly making reference to people who vote against those things for whatever reason they do it as scumbags. So it just makes no sense. That was one of the big contradictions with Corbynism. It was for the many. But actually, lots of people were disqualified from Corbynism by virtue of the fact they weren't left enough, or by virtue of the fact they appeared on newspapers and programmes, or they were corporate, or people who voted Conservative once, or people who didn't completely agree with every single aspect of what Corbynism was about. And so it's like, on one hand it's like for the many, but really that for the many umbrella gets smaller and smaller and smaller as everyone is exiled.
It was a bit for the many, so long as you agree with us. And I think, a lot of what you've touched on there is, really at the centre of what's going to be part of the main struggle for the Labour Party now, because when you're losing mining communities and guys like Dennis Skinner are now no longer MPs because the area voted overwhelmingly for Tories. I get there's an aspirational thing going on a lot of the time. Obviously Brexit was a big issue and stuff like that, but these issues that you're talking about need to be answered, because even when you look at the actual Labour leadership campaign just now, there's, people who are, Corbyn light and all these other things that are getting banded about, trying to keep those ideas alive. But I did think that there was elements of the Labour Party that become quite exclusionary in the build-up to the election. And at the time, when I started seeing results roll in, I was shocked. But I think having a period of time to reflect on it, looking back on it, I can kind of get it now. And as you say, if we're not engaging with the guys in the former mining communities and saying, well, hold on a minute, why did you vote this way? What was it that done it? How can we then have an effective opposition, an effective Labour Party that can then, mobilise the left, unify it in the same way that the right have in recent years, and actually make the changes that they want to make? But it was very much for the many, so long as you agree with us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think the issue for me around Labour is that we underestimated, it's just my kind of natural inclination to Labour coming through there, because I don't see myself as Labour, but I refer to that as the left, and I see myself as part of that.
Definitely.
So I think in the first instance, we underestimated the role that these cultural issues were playing.
Definitely.
Through a combination of fear and anxiety, and a lot of radical intellectuals who the activists look to for guidance on how to behave in communities and how to deal with issues, just passed the buck when it came to dealing with the issue of identity, because it was too difficult to address it. And so you had a lot of activists going into communities talking about class, and in the communities everybody's talking about immigration, and everybody's talking about race, and everybody's talking about all of these issues that were mainstreamed by the left.
Total disconnect.
It's quite ironic that Corbyn ultimately was aside for the Brexit issue and Labour's indecision on that, the most damaging aspect that for him was these anti-Semitism accusations, and actually the whole strategy that was deployed. Now I'm not for a minute saying there's no anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. There is, because there's anti-Semitism in our whole society.
Exactly.
So it's got to be found in every single iteration. You know what I mean? Just like there's misogyny everywhere and all of this sort of stuff. But a combination of Corbyn not really engaging fully with media, leaving a vacuum for people to pour scorn in whatever way they wanted, and also the fact that the
left he was
can...
trying to do high ground. He was trying to take the high ground, but it became abundantly clear that high ground was not working very, very quickly.
The fact he's trying to take the high ground just shows a complete misunderstanding of the environment he's operating in.
Yep.
I mean, the whole idea behind centrist politics is the pragmatic approach of accepting that society for what it is, including all the challenges of corporate right-wing media.
Yep.
Right, so you can disagree with centrism because whatever reasons you like, but at least understand that your Sturgeons, your Blairs, your Gordon Browns, all of these people, they're coming from a place of, this is the society with which we're confronted. Here is our strategy to deal with the challenges of getting some of our policies through. But what happened with Corbyn was ultimately the mechanisms, the strategy, even some of the language, the analysis all around identity that the left kind of mainstreamed. That was what was used against Corbyn. So the minute that Corbyn tried to say, or anybody in Labour tried to say, well, no, let's talk about this. It was like, oh, let's talk about this. No, we don't talk about this, mate. You accept 100% this problem. Now, where did we hear that before? On the left. So straight away, what's also been underestimated is all of this cultural resentment that's built up against the left. Years before Corbyn even got into power, right? All of these issues as they've played out online, all of these issues as they've played out on Piers Morgan and his TV show and all of these sort of things, all these issues around identity that have become social media tropes and easy clickbait and all of that. All of that stuff in the public got this sense, we can't get in, we've got no wriggle room, man. I've always got somebody jumping down my throat. I'm saying something wrong, I'm believing something wrong, I don't and then really what the left created was this kind of, it was just surrounded by people that were just waiting to be like, haha, now you know how it feels.
Kind of like Brexit, people just get fucking sick of it and went, fuck it, vote for the other guy, let's just move on for this.
Now you know how it feels to get accused of one of the worst things that you can be accused of, whether you can be reliably accused of that or not. Now you know how it feels when an accusation sticks. Now you know how it fucking feels. Get it right up, you Labour, you cunts. Do you know what I mean? Because Labour is this proxy for the left in the culture war. And there was no real articulation of, we recognise that these are some other concerns that are going on out here. We just tried to get back to the class analysis. And partly one of the things that Corbyn functioned as was a kind of an excuse to postpone some of those difficult conversations that we're now having with some of the YouTube content creators and stuff that I mentioned earlier around identity and culture, and separating these things out and saying, actually, when is it not cool to go after people online? When is it not cool to bring people's family and children into shit? When is it not cool to pretend that you're trying to advance a political cause when really you're just airing out a prior resentment that you have with someone behind the veil of communitarian concern? When is that not okay? Because I don't care how left-wing you claim to be, like, we're sometimes just full of shit. And it doesn't matter what colour you are, what gender you are, what you've been through. You have the same potential to be full of shit like I do.
Absolutely. I think that what's coming to mind here is the... there's a couple of people, and there's YouTubers as well. There's a guy, Hotep Jesus, in America, who is a right winger, but he uses the fact that he's black as a way to sort of infiltrate and sort of shitstir in that community, because it's like, he basically uses that, well, how can I be wrong when I'm black? How can I be wrong about racism when I'm a black man? Like, and there's a female that does it, and that, but he does it deliberately. And you think about it, it's beautifully done. It causes, he's a fucking idiot of a person, and the message that he's putting out there I do not agree with, but he's used that, when I think about what you were talking about there, he's used that platform.
He's used his identity to shield his self.
Exactly, and you get guys like Milo Yiannopoulos that uses his gay identity as a way to shield himself, but you can't really get, when you talk to people about it, you're like, but he's standing with a Bible, and like, it's a weird sort of, he's got a weird thing going on. He uses the fact that he's gay, and he stands up and basically goes, well, I'm gay, and when I'm talking about homosexuality, in your eyes, I should be the highest voice because I've experienced that, and uses it as a way to sort of like stir up the left. And I think that as well, people like Jordan Peterson, he talks about like cultural Marxism or cultural fascism.
Yeah, I used to use that term and I didn't know what it meant. And then I realised, and then it was kind of like...
and that's the dog whistle as well as being a warning that has come back to bite the left on the arse.
It seems to make sense at first, doesn't it? I think we're just living in an era where a lot of what the left has done is coming back to bite it culturally. Even with identity politics, that is really an evolution of a class analysis, which rather than the disparate groups being denoted as their social class, it's been expanded to the identity. So white, black, gay, straight, trans, da 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 da. So it's really a kind of, it's people on the left getting a sense of what it would be like to be a Tory.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like when somebody starts accusing you of being privileged because of your background, and then suddenly you're like, oh, hang on, I'm on the left, but this doesn't apply to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, but you're white. No, but what does that? Bastard, you know? Yeah. And so it's just all these ideas that really the left has kind of like relished in, and I'm not saying that they're no valid and they're no important, but we're just going through a period where everybody's getting their bearings, where they apply and where they don't. Everybody's getting their bearings on what language they need to use to articulate their feelings on it, whether they're against it or whether they support it. And ultimately people need to make a decision. Are they willing to put themselves on the line and stand their ground when they think they need to, and accept whatever comes with it? Because kind of coming from a place of, I'm scared to say things because all these bloody minorities are shouting at me on Twitter. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, don't be such a pussy. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be like at the most 100 people, if you're not moderately famous, are going to give you a hiding every few years because you say something dumb or because you stand your ground. Is it the end of the world? If anything that they say against you is not true, does it really matter? No. Are the majority of people going to buy in and believe it? No. So don't base your behaviour on the fact that some people are going to be critical, because part of free speech is you say your shit and somebody else says their shit. I think like we just need to be a bit more bold on the left in terms of just being more confident that the class analysis is ultimately the vehicle. It's the vehicle to power. It's the vehicle to getting more cultural traction in communities. And this does not exclude other analyses. This does not exclude other groups. It's just about saying, if identity for you is the ascendant issue, do your thing. Go and go and pick at Marvel Studios to make sure that you get more female superhero movies. Go and make sure Gillette know the score when they have an advert about toxic masculinity. Go and do those things. I like to see those things. I'm down for that. But do that over there, because over here what we're talking about is Gillette, pay your fucking tax. Marvel, pay your fucking tax. Yes. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. Absolutely. I think that's a good point to sort of move on to some other subjects. I think that, last year I came and seen your Fringe show in August 2019, and honestly thought that it was an amazing experience, and it wasn't just going and seeing a show. I felt that I sat at the back of the show and I was looking about and I could just see people squirming in their seat, and I felt that you had deliberately done that. So if people are squirming in their seat watching a stage show and it's no deliberate, maybe it's not been the right thing. But the bit that really impressed me the most was the sort of time travel bit that you did, which was not only just like really like expressive and felt that actually creatively was genius, but also it was it was honest, and it was a commentary on like, well, what I took from it is that no matter how far down or how big that you get or how brilliant you think that you are, if you have experienced things like addiction, you're always on the edge of sliding back into the things, and you need to you can't take your eye off the ball. When you spoke about like I've relapsed, as he told you that, as he relapsed, I thought it was absolutely fucking genius. But what kind of reaction did you get to that? Were you getting because a lot of people looked uncomfortable with it?
Yeah.
I embraced it, because that, to me, it spoke to me, because I am a recovered or recovering addict, and I have relapsed in the past and all these sort of things. That do I share that with people? No, I don't. Like, do you know what I mean? And I was like, this is, again, it was brilliant. But what was the type of feedback that you got for your show? Were you getting all positivity? Was there?
Well, just for the benefit of anyone listening who didn't see the show, so what we're referring to is there's in the show there's two versions of me. So there's a kind of time travel subplot where I begin the show, and then I'm so socially mobile that I'm actually travelling through time as well as up and down the class ladder. And I've turned up at the wrong year in the Fringe. And then further through the show, then I find like drugs in my pocket, and I'm like, well, these aren't mine, so who can they be? So then I allude to this other version of me who's loose in the timeline. And then I go away to try and clean up the timeline, and the drunk version of me appears. And the drunk version of me is the person that's consumed with anger about class disparity, just wearing everything, all my heart on my sleeve. But right at the very core of all the madness and all the anger is the most difficult truth of all, which is that if you've done well enough to think that having $2,000 in the bank means that you're running out of money, you're a fucking cunt. And if politicians are trying to appeal to your financial insecurity because you pay a lot of tax, you're a cunt. And I'm standing there with my hand in the air saying, I'm a cunt, right? And I'm trying to just show the people in the audience how the whole process of moving up the ladder moderates you politically, and that this creates a lopsidedness in British life where the people who suffer the least have to be the most catered to and comforted all the time by the political class at the expense of people who are living lives that we are increasingly remote from. So that's the sort of idea behind the show. The response to the show, first of all, it was nerve-wracking because the first year that I did the show and the book came out and just every stars all aligned for me in 2018 in a way that I could never have foreseen. So last year, really, the pressure for me, as I perceived at the time, probably as a product of the fact I wasn't very well mentally, everything that I did last year, I felt like I was comparing it to what had happened the year before.
Of course.
And if everything didn't match what I remembered, it wasn't as good. And I was in crisis.
Right.
So suddenly I had something to lose, and I was experiencing...
Thinking that a month-long run of that could be really fucking horrific, man. Like,
so what I was experiencing, though, was this, me suddenly having something to conserve. So the beginning of conservative impulses, right? Having kids, needing to protect them, not giving a fuck what happens to the community, and my pursuit to make sure that they've got everything that they need that I never had. And so really just trying to explore that. And as the shows went on and it started finding its feet, as it often does with a full run at the Fringe, then it became more emotional. You know, I started to realise, because ultimately what I was doing was road testing the structure for the book I'm working on.
yeah.
And seeing, is this arc going to work in a book? And it did. Because what I realised was all the people that were squirming, they all wanted to come and talk to me after it. They all had things to say.
Yep.
They were squirming because I designed the show that way, but really it was because too often you're kind of ABC1, the dominant socio-economic group in society as measured by the media, who divides us all into categories, much like Marxism, oddly enough. and that
demographics.
Exactly. And so really I broke the audience down into those categories, and then I throw them a wee bone here and there, and then they get the sucker punch. It's like showing the emotional intelligence to say you can validate people for long enough so that when you criticise them, they can take it. And they also get the cathartic pleasure of seeing people they disagree with being criticised. And so it's like there's just enough criticism and just enough pats in the back that everybody can go through a process of real reflection and vulnerability. And because I'm doing that myself on stage, the audience feels like we're in it together. But I did push it this time, because I think there was a kind of residual anger within me as well at feeling so displaced in terms of economically, socially. We alluded to this last time I was here. When your circumstances change, and as dramatic a way as mine did, you can become very isolated. You know what I mean? Because your problems start to change, and you start to think you can't go to your old friends with those problems because they're experiencing what you would see as real problems. So what you do is you start opening up new social connections with people who are experiencing what you're experiencing. Oh my God, my tax bill's fucking this and that, and I've got stress of that. Oh, what's it like, travelling to London all the time and all that, just pussy shit, right? But
they're real.
No, I know
they're
they're
real stress.
But
You know what I mean? Like
what I was witnessing was I was actually going through the process of changing. So you naturally become kind of more drawn to people who you can talk to these things about without being embarrassed, and also fundamentally where you can get actual proper advice.
Of course.
Absolutely.
What am I going to my friends to talk about paying 41% tax? What one of my friends is paying 41% tax?
Yeah.
Right. So just how can they give me advice about that? Right. So I'm going to have to go and talk to somebody who's made that amount of money,
Yeah.
that I can ask them, what was it like the first year that you done this and that and that? How did you manage? Did you find that you didn't actually keep that money aside because you didn't realise you had made as much? And they say things like, aye, it was fucking mental. Don't worry, it all works out.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, oh, I can go to them. You know, and then you start developing a friendship around other things. And so suddenly in that slow process of, I can't talk to them because it's a bit dumb talking to them about it for numerous reasons. I'll talk to them. And then you're kind of, your social gravitational pull is in another direction. And, you know, I don't know how you'd resist that. I don't know how you'd resist that, especially when you've got children. And that's the question I think that was at the heart of the show. Was how much of your integrity can you retain? How many comforting delusions about meritocracy and social mobility do you have to kind of adopt into your value system to justify why you're part of a shrinking bubble of winners? And so many people are continually doing shite no matter how hard they work.
Yep.
And I didn't really feel like I offered any big conclusion other than to just bring this into our awareness.
Aye.
As people who are enjoying social mobility is half the battle. To just being kind of like aware that a lot of what we think and feel about ourselves and why we've done well and what's going on in society is just a kind of product of the privilege that we enjoy for not being poor.
Aye.
Do you think that the pressure you've had the pressure to continue the success, which I think that we've seen play out many times over in society, whether it be amongst musicians, writers.
I think it's a transition that a lot of people have struggled with over the years.
For some reason, people, and I think that I feel in a smaller way, I've felt it all the way through my life, is that if you have success in one area, you feel like you need to keep that success up rather than just keep enjoying what you did to get that success and try and find it, like, and I think that's how you sort of ground yourself. But try to find that success, keep that success going, keep the momentum going, the Fringe show, working on the second book. Was that something that sort of came together when you had, which seemed to be, I wouldn't like to say like a breakdown, but there was obviously like a sort of
Kind of October time.
yeah, and like, was that a contributing factor, or was that something that was just sort of like underlying that just played out?
Well, the beginning of it really was 2017 when the book came out. So that's kind of when I relapsed properly after nearly 3 years sober. So I had 2 years sober, I relapsed, then I got nearly 3 years sober. The week the book came out, I travelled down to London. I was on Start of the Week. I had no expectations of how it was going to go. I had never heard of the show. Then I get brought in, sat in the room with all these successful people and get to talk about the book for 15 minutes. And then they had all read the book, so they all talked about the book. So basically it was like a 45-minute advert for me in the book. So when I came out of the studio, my life had changed. I could just tell. From my social media. So many people try to get in touch with me, try to book me, try to do all this. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have anybody, right? The publicist. And then I'm in London by myself. Within an hour the book goes to #1 on Amazon. I'm by myself. I don't have anyone to share this with. And I'm just in this kind of dangerous state of mania. You know what I mean? Where it's like you know those moments where you're dreaming and you're like, bastard, I'm dreaming. How much longer can I keep in this dream until I know I've got to wake up into my life? It's like that, except you have to remind yourself you're not dreaming. So you're like, I'm actually in this moment. I'm alive in this moment. This is my life right now. I mean, you can feel the mania surging within me just thinking about that day. And so that night I went home to my hotel and I had to do the Jeremy Vine show the next day, which was even bigger than Start of the Week. And suddenly I had an expectation. So suddenly I was like, oh, right, no, I get this is game changer. Right, if I knock this out the park, the more I've made it. And then what happened was an hour before I was supposed to go on, I got a phone call saying that they just pulled out and they had just cancelled. And because I had my spiritual defences by that point had been so low, because I was just caught up in this process of getting a book finished, getting it out, promoting it. I was moving and moving further away from my recovery. But I didn't detect how vulnerable I really was. And that was the thing. It burst the bubble. So in my extremist mindset, Jeremy Vine cancelling me meant I had failed. Even though everything else had happened, I thought I was going back to like Glasgow to my family, like ashamed that I hadn't managed to pull it out the bag for everybody. And that's how mad I was. And the first thing I done was I ran out of my hotel, ran round to Boots the Chemist, bought a big box of Solpadeine Max, rattled 4 of them into a bottle of water, dissolved them, tanned it, got a wee dunt off it. I was like, right, cool, that's fine, it can be done, I'll put them in the bin and I'll sort this out when I get home. By the time I got home in the train, I'd already had about 30 tablets. You know, ibuprofen with codeine, Solpadeine with codeine. Then you're built up a tolerance to the codeine, then you need Valium, it's only the fake Valium that's out now. So straight away you're in the ballpark, well, the drug death ballpark.
Yeah.
And for me, picking up any drug always leads to a drink eventually. And so really, the last 2 years I never managed to get more than 90 days clean for taking something. Do you know what I mean? And really what happened in October was I had made the mistake the previous year of agreeing to do so many things based on this fear that it was only going to last for so long. So I was like, 6-part TV series, cool. Fringe show, cool. Daily Record column, cool. Write another book, cool. Do every single event and media appearance and public speaking event I'm offered, cool. Because in my head, I'm like, I just need to get all this in the bag.
Absolutely.
Cram as much in as possible.
And really what happened was basically the wheels just started to come off. You know what I mean? The wheels came off, and I think I ended up on a 2-day proper bender once it was kind of out that I was drinking again.
Yeah.
And like for my family and friends who had been keeping all this a secret for, and then that thing happened that you don't imagine will happen when you decide you're going to lift a drink, because you lift a drink as an alcoholic, you lift a drink based on the fallacy you'll be able to control and enjoy it somehow, even though there's no evidence for that. So you always think you can foresee all of the different things that might happen, and you try to guard against them, but there's always a secret option that involves police and being suicidal that you don't foresee. And really all that had happened was I had been up for 2 days. I had so many different substances in my system. I was obtaining substances for people, manipulating them, but wasn't telling them all the other substances I had got off other people.
Because you never do.
So I'm dealing with, you know, I think when I got into rehab I tested positive for like 6 different substances, including alcohol, and that was like, you know, as well as the exhaustion, as well as not eating, as well as all the emotional issues that were going on. I don't really remember much. I remember kind of flashes of things.
Yep.
But basically, you know, a lot of the time for me, help arrives in the form of a police car. Do you know what I mean? And I just ended up having to bite the bullet, man, and just go, I'm fucked. You know what I mean? And I need to have a complete reset of my recovery. I need to get this idea out of my head that if I just get 90 days and I'll be back on track. I had lost track of the fact that I'd been in a relapse really for 2 years, whether using or no. I was just on a relapse trajectory.
And they say that thing with addicts is that, you know, every now and again you take the break to prove to yourself that you can do it. And I think maybe that's where the, you know, these individual sets of 90 days come from. Like, I mean, having manic episodes in the past and issues with the drink myself, like, you know, that mania that you're talking about is so dangerous, and when you're isolated away from home, unusual environments, it's like absolutely no surprise that that's what got the ball rolling. Like, when you're manic, you're already a massive danger to yourself without throwing drink and drugs and whatever else into the mix as well, you know what I mean? But
and this is all while, what's interesting though is this is all while I'm probably on social media like Holy Allen now, going on about this, that and the next thing. And in the background of my life I'm lying to all my friends and my family, people that love me. I'm getting so used to telling lies I don't even detect it when I'm doing it. And the whole reason is just like, it was because I'd kind of set myself up for it, you know what I mean? Like a pal of mine had committed suicide. Another pal of mine wasn't well all year, and I was worried that he might not make it. And because the way that addiction works, it's burrowing in your mind, it's waiting for an excuse to present the case that you should pick up. And when people die and your spiritual defences are low, or when somebody cancels on you, or somebody calls you something on Twitter, all these things seem like, fuck it, you hit the fuck it button. And really it all comes down to me no managing my recovery, no taking responsibility for the reality I'm an addict. And only share it publicly because the breakdown was public.
Yeah.
And so I need to kind of counter it with the recovery aspect of it, because at some point a day I'd have to address it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for myself, because a lot of my behaviour in those days leading up to it as well was really manic. People were worried. I was very vicious on social media towards different people. I don't even remember a lot of the interactions that I had, but I remember having to get a very trusted friend of mine to log into my Twitter when I was in rehab and basically delete every single thing I had tweeted from like the 9th of September. Because I just didn't want to have to... I could feel the emotional resonance of what had happened. I didn't need to be confronted with every single instance of the cringe and the embarrassment and the shame, because, like, believe you me, those first couple of days in rehab when you're being detoxed are fucking hardcore.
Aye. People talk about the fear, but they don't.
I can still feel it, man.
One of the things that really stood out to me when I didn't really see it unfold. I heard about it, and it was almost like... What I really liked about it was a good example of somebody who has a high profile, maybe no living up to the expectations that they've either set for themselves and other people have had, and people had such a concern, and it wasn't really, well, fuck him. Like, you see happen quite a lot where people are like, right, bin that then, and now the books, we shouldn't be doing that, and like, we should cancel them. That didn't happen.
No,
people sort
were
of
genuine, and their affection and support for you, which I've got to say was something that jumped out at me as well.
And you know what's mental? This is how mad we can become, because all this happened because I wouldn't take time off. I wouldn't take time off because I was that scared if I said I need more time to finish my book, or I can't do the Fringe, or that somehow somebody out there would just occupy my spot. So just first of all, this idea that anybody can replace me is daft, because I'm me and I bring me to the table. Nobody else can bring me to the table, they can only bring them, so who's going to replace that?
Exactly.
And then the other thing is just that, like, being so unwell to realise that you put everything at stake when you lift a drink or take a drug. Everything that you're fighting for, everything you think you're trying to protect by behaving so manically and addictively is actually what's at risk, including your children, including your relationships, the most important things. And you know what? See, when I got to rehab and I was like 5 days in and I was detoxed and I was clean for the first day, and it was just ball on deck, started just doing what was suggested, remembered everything I had knew and been taught about recovery all the previous years. And suddenly I was like, then the email started going out. It's just like, I need a month off from the paper. Or I need can't have any talk about the book now. Cancel all the calendar until the end of January. And you know what? Not one negative repercussion of all that. You know what? In fact, the opposite. People like that, take as long as you need. We all support you. We all love you. We hope you're all right. And it's just like, I got myself into that place because I thought I couldn't ask for help. I thought I couldn't say I'm no managing. And the minute that I asked for the help, everybody's like, of course.
Of course, have it. See, if you
that's
were
a mistake we all make.
Absolutely. If you're looking back at it now, and thinking about the situation and how it played out over the course of 2017, 2018 and 2019, what are you going to do differently now? Because if you're working on another book, I've got no doubt it's going to be as good as Poverty Safari, and I've got no doubt that all the opportunities are going to flood in again. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that I've got no doubt that that's going to happen. Like, what are you going to do differently next time? Are you going to...
Well, my year's already kind of planned out now. So that's the first thing. So I've got a deadline for the end of March to try and get a draft of the book in if I want it to be published in August. But if I don't meet that deadline, it's no the end of the world. So that's the first thing, right? Then if I do meet the deadline, I move into the next TV series or the spring, the summer. So straight away you can see I'm getting to a place where I'm taking one job on at a time.
Yeah,
that's
right?
vital, I think.
What had happened last time was everything started to overlap with each other and blend into each other, and to the point where I'm writing a book in the back of a motor, going to a location to film for a TV show. I'm trying to get the film crew to give me an hour so I can get my column in before 7 o'clock in the morning before we drive away to do a thing. And there's just so much going on. And you know, so this time really, and I think one of the benefits for me anyway when you do something, when you have a kind of, when you struggle in the way that I was so publicly, it becomes very, very clear to everyone around you, including all the people that you work with, that you're vulnerable.
Yes.
And actually, as much as my fear might have been, people will be like, oh, well, we can't fucking work with him because he's fucking mad. Actually, everybody came back and was just like, what do you want to do? And how do you want to do it?
Being careful.
How do you want to do it? So really, like, it's a case of, I can't have an extremist mindset of, if I don't do this, that's going to It's breaking my year into bits. So focus on my book. Do a bit of telly stuff. Do a wee bit of fringe. And then I'll have a show, a book, and a TV series to promote at the end of the year. And that's if it all comes off the way it's planned.
Yeah.
Things change, things chop and change. The difference is I'm not operating from a place of this is all going to be taken away from me.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've believed since I was about 5 years old. Like, that's just a core belief.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say.
I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. It's no for me.
What's coming to me is that perhaps the working class and the sort of the background has meant that when you get that, you've been working towards a success for when you were like a late teenager, and then when you finally get it, the message and what I would be thinking is the strike while the iron's hot, like the time is now, I need to do it.
Such an easy thing to do in that respect, like approach it in that manner.
And I think that this is something that now you've had that learning experience, and obviously you're a wee bit more comfortable taking that time to actually do the work properly, don't overwhelm yourself, is probably a very good message to say to anybody that finds himself in that situation.
And especially people with young children. Because what you'll find is the children will light a fire under your arse to provide like nothing else will.
Yeah.
But also the process of raising the children, if you're actually going to attempt to be involved in any meaningful way, will exhaust you and dispirit you and place strains on your relationships and all the different ways that if you're trying to do the providing and the child rearing and all the other stuff on top of it, and you're not sitting down at first before you even launch into all that and going like that, what is really important here? Like since I got back home, I don't check myself into hotels anymore to do work.
Right.
Like, that was me isolating. That wasn't me working. I can go to a library and do that.
Yeah.
And if it's too noisy, I can put earplugs in. I was isolating in hotels. I was hiding from my family.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when I was working away, I would be away for so long, I would come home and I'd feel so clumsy around my kids because they all get into their own wee rhythm when you're away.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I would get dead resentful because I would be scrolling through my news feed. It's pure Progressive Central and it's just one article after another about guys being shit and guys this and guys that. And intellectually, I totally understand what all of that means. And nothing will give you a glimpse into the world of patriarchy than watching the mother of your children trying to fucking deal with all of the pressure that's on her as a mother with two children, whether it's the pressure to look a certain way, eat a certain way, get back to work, stay at home, and then at the same time you've got an economy and a society that, while it sounds like it's all about gender equality, really wants to adopt the very traditional configuration of the guy goes out and works and the mum stays at home.
Yeah.
And it's a very hard thing to resist when you have two young kids.
Definitely.
And so I just remember like times thinking like the society seems to think I'm coasting through life and that I'm getting a great kick out of the privilege that I enjoy, and actually I'm spending a lot of my time thinking about how I'm going to end my own life, and I don't know how to express this without being exiled for making the comment about the culture of kind of that's always like men are shit, you know. I know that's not what's happening in the culture, that's how I was interpreting it sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're just scrolling through your newsfeed and you're just like, and you know, some twat is tweeting about whatever they're tweeting about, and they don't know the full narrative of your life, and they don't know what's going on, and you're just saying like, cut me some slack, man, all day's work. Do you know what I mean? When I come home, I fucking fall asleep, I'm back up, I do the night times with my wains, everybody's got everything they need and more, and somehow I'm getting a message for society, that's still not enough. That's still not enough for me. I've also got to fucking make sure that I'm loading the dishwasher just the exact amount of times that my missus is loading it, and I've also got to do all
your
that.
fair share.
I'm just like, on one hand I know that that's no unreasonable, and on the other hand I was immensely irritated by it
When you
all.
get into that idea, and for me, when I'm uncomfortable or when I've had those sort of manic episodes, I have periods of really sort of cyclical thinking, and I think when you're already, starting to question how you feel about your work, how you question how you feel about your mental health and any addictions, and then you also come home for the road after a couple of weeks, and as you say, the winds are in the rain with your routine, and maybe
And they don't want to talk to you.
It takes you a few days to get in there. There's that becomes the thing that then starts, following that sort of cyclical thinking pattern, and it's all just reinforcing that unease that you've had throughout the entire process, and
You begin to realise that to other people on the outside it looks like everything's going great, and that you're actually enjoying none of it because there's too much happening, and you're not in a mindset where you can be grateful, and there's no a moment to savour anything that's going on. It's always on to the next thing, and it was me that put myself in that position. Now fair enough, I did it because I didn't have the foresight, because I'd never experienced it before, but had I been a bit more firmly in the middle of the bed in my recovery, it would have been a bit more intuitive how to manage these things.
Definitely.
This was just something I had to go through. I was lucky to come out the other side of it. In the process of me relapsing, people died, people who were struggling in the periphery of my life have struggled with different things. So when we experience mental health crises, we're not the only ones affected. You know what I mean? Where there's people around us that are also, it can be toxic, it can be dispiriting and dangerous. But I mean, I don't know if my message necessarily is positive for other people out there or analogous in terms of the circumstances around my difficulties. But really, all that happened with me was old behaviours crept in because I was struggling, and that was the case before any of the success. It was like, I've got factory settings that I will return to if I don't take certain action every single day to make sure that my intentions for the day are set before I begin to move in my life. And I become prey to depression and resentment and all of these negative things. And part of taking responsibility for me is making sure that I accept that, I understand that, I can't change it. And so what am I going to fucking do about it,
Exactly. Your only choice is to manage it, isn't it?
Absolutely, man. I think that's an amazing sort of end to the show. I mean, we're only half in, and
again, like the last time, it's just pure breezed by.
Aye, man. Like, you're an amazing guest. Like, I think that just sitting talking to you, it's so easy.
I forget we're recording. Do you know what I mean?
I'll take that as a good thing, but I mean, I that's like flow state and all sorts going on. But I just want to thank you for coming in again, but also touching on a difficult subject that you faced,
man.
and being open and honest about it. And so thanks for coming in, man.
And thanks for me, but I also, like, good luck with the year ahead, man. Like, I really enjoyed all the work that I've engaged with in the last year. And I know, even though it's been a tough year, I'm really excited to see what comes next for you, man. So best of luck with it.
Thank you, man. Cheers.
Lightning falls when there is panic in the sky. Thunder calls when all but fear is left to die. You tell it like it's fantasy, something that you're never going to be. Same old story every day. There's just one thing that I have to say, that if we believe, if we trusted you, why you say the things you do, you'd see a whole new way to be. Giving honest answers and not those lies to me. Empty halls now filled with echoes of their past. Honor stalls, they lived each day like it's their last. You tell it like it's fantasy, something that you're never going to be. Same old story every day, there's just one thing that I have to say. That if we believe, if we trusted you, then I don't know why you say the things you do. You'd see a whole new way to be. Giving honest answers and not those lies to me. I can tell that you're on a mission just to break the walls down time and time again. If it wasn't true, would it be okay to break the walls down time and time again? That if we believe, if we trusted you, then I don't know why you say the things you do. You'd see a whole new way to be. Giving honest answers and not those lies to me. Believe, if we trusted you, then I don't know why you say the things you do. You'd see a whole new way to be. Giving honest answers and not those lies to me.